I met this girl. I like take my kids to go skate on my quads because I can't skateboard. So I met this. People see you skating and then they join, which is really cool because like that doesn't usually happen in a small town where people's like, "Oh, you're skating? I want to skate too." But
Yeah.
that's how I've met a couple friends is skating, and so I always just follow people on Instagram just if like I like know they have a good vibe, and so I had her on Instagram and then she shared your page because I think her daughter lives in San Diego.
Nice.
Hmm.
That's so crazy how like the whole Instagram thing works. And it's just like,
Yeah. It really brings community together in like a positive way.
yeah.
But like now I've just been kind of like, I don't know, with all the reels and the algorithms, I'm just like, oh, I kind of miss old Instagram.
You're like, just share pictures. That's all we want.
I
Share
don't, it's
everything.
just a lot, just like so much content. And I'm like, overload. It's like me too, because I like follow like every little thing I even slightly like. So I'm just like,
That's so true. I'm right there with you. I'm like, that's a lot of freaking work. I don't know how, because Manny does all the Instagramming and all that
uh-huh.
kind of stuff. So I'm like, I can't imagine like taking time to be like, okay, let's take a break. And now Instagram and,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, that's a lot of work, period. And, you know, I think that, it's a great way to like stay connected and to just have like engagement. But at the same time, you're like, you have to be super creative and all that kind of stuff. And you're just like,
I just feel like the engagement's the most important. I mean, you seem super engaged on it. Well, do
yeah.
you? I don't know. You're very responsive, and like to me, I feel like that's what people. I mean, that's what I like is like when people are like very responsive and like, yeah, like want to like get together and like make things happen.
Yeah. 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 What do you,
I think we can start. I think
I
we're.
know. I'm like, should I get my setup? I have my sewing
Can,
machine right here.
can you
yeah.
hear us pretty good through the speakers? Are we coming through?
Oh yeah, you guys sound really good.
Perfect, perfect.
Awesome.
Let's see, try to get my mannequin in here a little more.
And yeah, this stuff has a better camera. You see?
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
that's gonna have to do.
and this is the first time we're doing it like this, so there is no wrong. Like you're setting the
We're going
tone right now. However, we're gonna do it in the future. We're gonna start today.
Oh,
So however
exciting!
you guys want to start it, however you want to do it, like
we're going to get wild in the sewing studios. I don't know how that happens, but you can get wild. We got wild last night in here. No, we're actually like, it looks like such a mess or work in progress right now because we're getting ready for the art show on Saturday. So there's like, we had like people come and help us paint,
Uh-huh.
like some of our friends and stuff. And so while I was like sewing, and one of my girlfriends was like helping fold fabric, and I was like, I suck at like asking people for help. And so she's like, "Do you need help?" And I was like, like I you know, I I was like this is like a lot for me to like ask for help. So I was like, yes, if you could help me, that would be great. And she's like,
Uh,
okay.
it is
She's like, why would you
hard.
not ask me? And I'm like, I don't know. You feel like bad. Like, I don't know. But I think that that's like one of the things where, I got to get a little bit stronger with like delegating,
Yeah,
like, I'll help, you're like, okay,
especially
and
if
you
you
just kind
give
of
a
like,
lot.
yeah. And, it's just one of those things where you're just kind of like, all right, like, I know you're going to do a good job. You're going to do a good,
Yeah,
like, I mean, no one's going to fuck up anything. So
yeah.
you're, but it's just hard to, let it go and be like, okay, you do it. And you're just kind of like, all right, do a good job.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
I've been loving seeing the posts and like what other people are doing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like
Yeah.
gonna be so
It,
cool.
we're really excited. I think it's like one of our the first art show that we've ever
Uh-huh.
done. So we're like excited just to collaborate with a bunch of people and just get to know, more people that are like in the area, but also people that are like traveling for it. And it's exciting. It's
Yeah.
exciting to to utilize like our space and like our platform to be able to like highlight people that
Yeah.
that they also do like art, and we're like in similar like pages,
Uh-huh.
of our lives, where you're just kind of like, all right, what do we do now? And like,
Uh-huh.
like I'm sure that you've had that before, where it's like, sewing is an art, and how do you like
Yeah.
change that narrative of like actually like letting people appreciate that sewing
Uh-huh.
is work, as opposed to them just being like, well, I could get this at Ross.
Exactly. Yes.
Like, why are you charging that? What depicts your price, And so you're
Yeah.
kind of like, well, I made it. So,
Yeah.
but before we get into like too much of a in-depth conversation, I would like for you to like introduce yourself, because I'm really
Okay.
excited to do your little formal introduction, because I'm really excited for you to like, be on the podcast, and for us to like try it like this. It's like really
Uh-huh.
cool. Um, yeah.
Okay. I didn't prepare at all because like I'm the type of person who's like I just function better off of winging it than just being
Yeah.
having a prepared speech. Um but yeah, okay. So just like introduce my I feel like I'm going up in class. Okay, my name's Hillary Mendoza. I'm a designer located in the Central Valley. I did live in Los Angeles for a little bit where I do pop-ups and get involved there. But now I'm back in my small town. I've been trying to build my community. I don't know. I've taken a little break, like being a single mom and all that. But I've been trying to like figure out ways to like I don't know, just get like have like a little creative center for like our community. I just not that it's hard in a small town, but it's definitely like different than when you're in the bigger cities.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I think it's hard building that community, because it's like you have like a certain kind of style,
Uh-huh.
So it's like, usually like crafting communities are like older ladies, and
Uh-huh.
and then you're just kind of like, oh, okay. Not that there's anything wrong with that,
Uh-huh.
but it's like it's just a different style. And
Yeah.
and like really finding people that are going to be like encouraging
Yeah.
and like in the know. Like, it's basically like I feel like building community is definitely like around sewing or anything like that.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of that. Like, it's basically you're networking, right? And you're just
Uh-huh.
basically being like, okay, so how could we, like, when I get a huge thing of fabric, like, who can I call, because I can't keep all this stuff? Like,
Uh-huh.
who could come and pick some of this stuff up? But at the same time, it's like, with events like this, like the Sewing is Life
Mhm.
art show, I'm like, who could we like invite as like a textile artist? Because I
Yeah.
do feel that we're really trying to like change that narrative of like what sewing is, and like building community. Really, like, that's why when I had seen your page, we got really excited about it, because we're like, oh shit, someone that like does something like similar to us, that's
Uh-huh.
building community, that's like really changing, like, hey, there is other people that do similar things to us, and
Uh-huh.
really like building that community, as opposed to like that, like, that competition of like, well, they do similar things to us, so it's like, how could
Yes.
you know, and more like where it's like, hey, you know what? Like, if we're showing people that this is like where the fashion industry is headed, because it
Uh-huh.
is, that's what the prediction of it, right? Where it's like they're really like saying like, hey, this is where it's headed. Like, this
Uh-huh.
is gonna be a lot of recycling, a lot of upcycling, all that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
Like, how since we're at that forefront, how can we really work together to like really like show that there is like a large group that's already doing that?
Yeah.
Everyone else has to pivot to like what we're doing, and
Uh-huh.
so it's a really cool like way of like just getting to know other people that are in so many different places,
Uh-huh.
and like really like building that to basically be like, oh my god, like I always think, I'm like, now you have a place to come and sew in San Diego.
Uh-huh.
Now we could get together and sew, whenever you come visit. But it is like I don't know, like I don't know why that gets me so excited to like have like friends where you could be like, yeah, because I don't have a lot of friends that sew, right? Like that
Uh-huh.
that are gonna be like, yeah, let's sew something, So for me, like a Friday night or a Saturday night where you could just basically be like, hey, you want to sew some stuff together? Like
Yeah.
that sounds fun to me, right?
Yeah, and just like for me, I just even like trying to like have your business on your own, it's like so lonely too. It's just like,
Yeah.
and like, yeah, that's what like I'm like a sewing machine hoarder. I don't know what it is. If I see a sewing machine, I'll buy it. I'll try to tinker with it. Sometimes it's more fun than the actual sewing. So I have like a
Like
few sewing machines. I'm like, what am I doing? I should like open up a little community center, but that one, and then I'm like, okay, well, what's the first step? And then just life. So I don't know. I just think that your space is really cool, and it's just so welcoming too. Like I
thank you.
haven't been there, but like just based off your Instagram and like your reshares, it just seems like such a welcoming environment.
I think that was like my whole thing, right? Where it's like, you know, like I've loved sewing for a really long
Uh-huh.
time. Like, there was a little lady that like started coming to like the school in elementary school, and she was like teaching like little like needlework, and I
Uh-huh.
was, oh, this is like so cool. And like, I just got really obsessed with it. And I was like, how can I like get people to become addicted to this thing? How can I trap them? How can I get them to stay? And, because it's like, I don't know, like we know how much like time and energy goes into like a
Uh-huh.
piece, and, and you just want to, you want to like show people like all that stuff, like all the, like your energy that goes into it, like,
Yeah.
how you enjoy it, like how it makes you feel, like all those kind of things. And so we used to have like a wall that would like hide like the soy machine. So it kind of like divided the space. And then I was like, well, like if I'm here working, like people can't like see me that I'm working because there's
Uh-huh.
like a wall, and
Yeah.
so people would just kind of like pass and be like, there's no one in there, just keep going. And I was like, I'm going to move that wall because it's like, I don't know, like I wanted for me to be able to like work and like
Yeah.
stuff without people, kind of being like, there's no one in there, just keep walking. And so once like I moved it, like people were like, oh, you actually make everything in here. And I was like, yeah. And so then they're like, oh, damn. Okay. And so it like allows for that conversation, for people to be like, wow, like that's really cool, and you're like, yeah. And then you're like, we also do like workshops and, all that kind of stuff. And people were like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, and but I think that like, you know, growing up in like in like the 90s and 80s, you like trying to find like safe space for like brown people to like create,
Uh-huh.
do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's important, and to like encourage it, to basically,
Yeah.
yeah, you could do it, and like value yourself as like an artist, like, like I really wanted to create something like that where it's like, hey, like this is a space for like everyone to feel safe and welcome,
Yeah.
you know. And so I think the sewing machine and sewing is always like an icebreaker to that, and then people just start to, I don't know why the sewing machine is so comforting to people. I think because they think it reminds them of their like aunt or mom or grandma.
Uh-huh.
And so then
Yeah.
they're having like this thing like, oh my god, this reminds me of my mom or my grandma,
Yeah. It's
and then they open up.
yeah, it's funny because like I started sewing and then it like it's weird how it just automatically connected me to like so many of my roots. Like I had one of my aunts that gave me no, it was like my cousin. It was like, one of those distant cousins that like anyway, her mother passed away, which was my aunt. Okay, I'm like remembering how I'm related to my family.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so it's my cousin, her mom passed away, which would be like my great aunt, and she had all this fabric and she gave it to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like even me just like
That's
posting on sometimes I post on Facebook and I'm like, Oh, it's just like a bunch of people from high school and some family members. Like, what's posting on Facebook gonna do? But like, it even connected me to like those family members.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's cool that like, there's that younger generation that's like sewing
Uh huh.
and like really like, creating like really cool things where it's like, you're going out, you're thrifting, you're like, we're working stuff,
Yeah.
making stuff. And it's cool to be able to like see that because there's not a lot of people that do that, where it's like they're able to like sew,
Uh
you
huh.
know. And I think a lot of people are just kind of, because I feel like there was like that, the people that sew that were like garment, like piece workers,
Yeah.
and so we were like, oh, okay. And so I think a lot of people kind of like associate that kind of stuff where it's like you're kind of doing the same thing, right? And you're like, no, like I like either you create it from like start to finish or you're reworking it, but it's not the same as like piecework where it's like everything's like the same, everything's the same,
Uh huh.
So it's like I think that like really devalued like people that were creating like start to finish
Uh
things.
huh.
And because people that were doing like piecework were getting paid by the piece.
Uh huh.
So then you're like, well, if I made 20 of these, if I sewed 20 lines on this thing, I'm gonna get paid for
Uh
20.
huh.
You know, and I think like I'm glad that like now like that whole law changed where it's like you can't like pay people like piecework,
Uh huh.
because it's like you can't make like a livable wage like that, and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. But it's really interesting how like now there's like a lot of like businesses like yours that are like sprouting up, and like people are like,
Yeah.
oh, damn, that's so cool. And that's like so amazing, right? Because it's like you're creating like one of one things
Yeah.
that like you're not going to be able to find somewhere else. So it's like, how is that like not like a good deal?
Yeah, and that's
You
been like
know?
my mindset since like I was in high school. Like in high school, I'm like, I just want something that no one else can, that no one else is gonna have. And then I feel
Yeah.
like people sometimes I think that's a little more attainable with all these like fast fashion, like Shein, and people just don't realize how harmful it is. Like people will repost the stuff like saying, "Oh, but like until you make a garment, like you really don't know how much those people are suffering with these like
Oh
high
yeah.
expectations of
Yeah. How
creating
did
these
you?
garments."
Yeah. No. I've seen. I saw like the documentary. I think it's like the real price
Uh-huh.
of like like fast fashion or something like that. But it was insane. I was like, what? I was like, we're not shopping at any of these.
Yeah.
Not that I like do like H&M or like
Uh-huh.
Zara or like Forever 21, but you're just kind of like, whoa, because it's like we're disconnected. In all reality, we're so disconnected with like where our
Yeah.
clothes comes from and like, and I think like as like just like a country, like we're so disconnected with like where the goods are coming from and like how people there are being treated,
Yeah.
And so you're just kind of like, well, these are also like minority like women that are in another country. So it's
Yeah.
like, why don't we like give a fuck about them? You know? And so it's kind of like really like difficult to also like be like a consumer where you're like, okay, like this shirt that I bought is like let's say that it's $8, right?
Uh-huh.
Like it's like how like we're a lot of like people that they don't have like the livable wage of being able to be
Yeah.
like, I could buy this for like $40, and support a small business. So it's like we don't have like that luxury of
Yeah.
like we also have like budgets, and I understand people's budgets and all that, and like
Mm-hmm.
what you're able to afford and what you're not, so it's like I think we got like put in like a really interesting like situation with like wanting to support like small business, but
Uh-huh.
also like there's a lot that it's like you're getting more like bang for your buck
Uh-huh.
with going to Ross and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, and I get it, it's like we're not where we need to be yet in order to like overthrow the fast fashion world.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so bad. We're gonna overthrow them.
It does though. It's terrible for the environment. It's terrible for the people. I don't know. It's sometimes I think about Zoolander and
Yeah.
and how what Mugatu and the I don't know. I know it's silly, but I still think about that sometimes. I'm like, wow, like Zoolander was exposing the fast fashion back in the day. It's like, how come no one's woken up since Zoolander?
You know what? It's so interesting because it's like I wrote like this paper. I think it was like more than 15 years ago, and I was like, global warming is real. It's real, guys. We gotta pay attention, you know. And I was like, so like there was no like droughts or anything like that. And I was like, guys, like we really have to pay attention to these things because it's like things are getting hotter and
Yeah.
like it's melting and you know, like things like that. And like everyone was just kind of like, all right, like that's cool, you know, whatever.
Uh-huh.
And like now I'm like looking back and I'm like, oh my God, like this was um you know 15 years ago that
Uh-huh.
I was like, dude, global warming is like real. Look at how like hot our summers are and look at how cold our winters are, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, and how that like affects like, you know, because it's like I feel like, you know, we definitely have become like a society of like we just assume that we're going to have endless resources,
Uh-huh.
you know. And I think that's a little dangerous, you know. I think it's a little dangerous to just have that mindset of like we could have it all anytime because
Yeah.
you know we can't, especially like with water and you know, especially water, like and how like polluting like a lot of like these gigantic corporations and like
Uh-huh.
Bangladesh like pollute their water stream, and then you're just kind of like, whoa, like and how it like affects like little like
Mm-hmm.
communities around them, you know. And so you're just kind of like, whoa, like if this is getting into like water and we're drinking water like on an everyday basis, like we have the luxury of like having like nice clean water,
Yeah.
you know. But it's like, you know, where these garments are coming from, like a lot of these people they don't have that luxury of
Uh-huh.
being able to wear gloves where, you know, when they're working with textiles that have been dyed with like very toxic
Yeah.
like dyes or anything like that. So um yeah, it's a really interesting conversation to get
Yeah.
into.
Yeah, and it's like you can't do everything. Like
Yeah.
you have to pick and choose. Like if you want to support by buying something natural dye or buying something handmade, it's like it is a lot. So it's not like I'm like you have to because I upcycle and I wear my own clothes and even sometimes I have to buy ready-made clothes. Like
Yeah.
I try not to, but there's every once in a while I'm like, oh, just need to buy this. It's
Yeah.
mostly like
Yeah.
sports stuff is when I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I gotta get this from Target. And then
Yeah.
I go to Target and I get this anxiety because I see things I saw an Instagram creator make and then it's in Target and I'm like, oh, Target took that from them.
Dude, yes, I've seen that too.
Yeah.
I remember I did like the half and half shirts, like t-shirts.
Uh-huh.
And like I think it was like a few months later, friends were like, look at fucking Target's copying your ass. And I was like, well, that you know, that's you know, no, but yeah. And
Yeah.
you're just kind of like, I think these are like trends, you know, that
Yeah.
happen, you know, and you're just kind of like, all right, fuck you, Target. But
Yeah.
but you're like, all right, like, you know. And I think that that's like, I think that that's like a space where it's like it like sucks, right? Like as
Yeah.
like a small business and you're like creating these things and like how are you like, oh my God, what if like someone takes your design and then like goes with it and you're just kind of
Yeah.
like, whoa, like because that's like your baby, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like you're at the same time, it's like you put a lot of time and energy into like your designs and then someone
Uh-huh.
like takes it and then you're just kind of like, whoa, you know. And how do you fight like a big company like that to
Yeah.
basically be like, "Hey, that was like my thing, you know? And how do you prove that? And you know, so it's a lot. I think obviously like big companies like that should like give like it should utilize their platform to basically like uplift, you know,
Uh-huh.
smaller designers and stuff like that. But some people want that, some people don't. So, you know, I don't know how you would feel about being at Target, but
Oh, I know. I'm like, I would want to be like no Target, but I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, and it's just like, yeah, it's one of those things where like I've seen Instagram creators like I said no to this corporation, and I'm like, well, I hope like would I don't know because
Yeah.
I've never been in that situation, and then it's just like, and that's like, yeah, that's like the pressure we're under. We're trying to change the world, and then we succumb to these corporations because of the financial stability.
Yeah.
So it's just like one of those capitalist things. And if
You're
someone
like,
I knew, sorry,
yeah. No, you're fine.
oh, I was gonna say if someone I knew like accepted something from Target, I wouldn't like judge them for it. I'd be like, you know what,
Yeah.
you need to support yourself. Like, there's nothing
Yeah.
selfish in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those
And
things.
I love your standpoint on that. Like, everyone makes the correct decisions for their own
Yeah.
business, right? Like how you said, you're a single
Uh
mom,
huh.
so it's like, if the opportunity was there of like basically being like, hey, this is going to be like a little bit more comfortable for our family.
Uh huh.
Like, you make those decisions based off of like you, your family, how it's going to affect like,
Yeah.
your household, all those kind of things. And so, it is really about like respecting, like, hey, you know what, like that you're entitled to make those decisions for your business because
Yeah.
it is your business, and it's like, and who is anyone else to judge
Yeah.
the decisions you've had to make because you have X, Y, and Z that you have to take care of,
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't think it's anyone's like no one could really like say anything about like how you decided to like do this or that, because it's like you thought that it was like good for how you wanted to run your
Yeah.
business, and I think everyone has like those little kind of like things, right, where you're just kind of like, oh my god, like this would be great,
Yeah.
and a lot of the times it's great and you get like a lot of exposure or this and that, and it becomes like something that you're just kind of like, wow, like this was, and a lot of the times it's like it's not. So it's like, I guess like navigating those things
Uh huh.
is one of those things where it's like once you're there, you're like, all right, like how could we make this work for you,
Yeah.
or for how do you make it work for you as like the creator and like
Yeah. And your
you know
values
yeah,
in
and
America.
yeah, yeah. How did you get into like the whole like sewing and like repurposing and recycling and all that?
Well, like ever since I was like in high school, and like the thing is, I've never been. I mean, people say I have imposter syndrome a lot, but this is how I feel. I've never been like a great sewer. Like in high school, I got like a D in my sewing class, and it's just because I'm not like very technical. I'm very like like not messy. Like my work doesn't look messy, but it's not like I don't know how to what word am I looking for? It sometimes like you can tell, yeah, it's handmade. And then after high school, I went to LA Trade Tech in LA. And those teachers, it was just a community college, but they like wanted you to, or I should say just a community college. I'm just saying it was they were like, I felt like it was on Project Runway because they were like, oh, everything had to be sewn so perfect. And um, I struggled there too, but like I never like told myself like, oh, I can't be a designer because of this, because I never
Yeah.
stopped designing. So yeah, I've just always loved it. I've always loved having a creative outlet. So, and I've just never stopped. And every time I stop, something pulls me back towards it. So that's why I'm like, okay, this is my calling.
You know what? It's so interesting that you said that, because I feel like there's a lot of like really traditional schools, right, where they want you to learn it. Like it has to be this way and it has to be
Uh-huh.
like sewn at like a quarter of an inch,
Yeah,
and very
exactly.
specific.
Uh-huh.
And look, I didn't go to like a traditional school to like learn like any sewing or anything
Uh-huh.
like that. So for me, I'm like, I didn't go through that. But it's like, I also feel like it's like sewing's like a creative thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Where it's like yes, you want to have like those basic rules of like you sew this and you sew that, but it's like also like allowing, like you're not going to go to like a painting and be like, this painting wasn't painted at a like 1/4 of an inch of like
Yeah.
gray to like blue, and
Yeah.
it's like, and I feel like, you know, like I'm all about like changing that, where it's like sewing is like art. It's like,
Uh-huh.
and you're wearing it, you're able to like express yourself with it. So it's like, why are we like why are we so harsh with it, in the sense where it's like it has to
Yeah.
be sewn this way or else
Yeah.
it's not good, and that like really like hurts, because it's like you're
Yeah.
putting a lot of time and energy into something,
Uh-huh.
um, that you like,
Yeah.
and that is going to like fit you a certain way, and it's going to make you feel a certain kind of way. So, yeah, like I love like the videos of like, I made this,
Uh-huh.
look at this shirt that I made, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
Y-
And and you're just kind of like showing people like,
Yeah.
the stuff that you made, and it's good to be able to like see something like that, because like I said, like I don't think that there's a lot of people that could make like start to finish, or even like tweak it, and or like see the potential
Uh-huh.
in clothes that's already made, like okay, these are good bones, but like how do we
Mhm.
change it to like modernize it, and I love that you do that. Like I love that, and I'm like, wow, that's really freaking cool, and
Yeah.
I can see the famous wall in the back.
What was that?
See the famous wall in the back where you do like the videos and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's really cool. Like I love it. I love, just seeing like other people that are like really doing like the sewing thing,
Uh-huh.
like sitting there and like, because sewing teaches us like patience,
Yeah.
patient with ourselves, to like, to allow the process of like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe you're gonna have to unstitch this,
Uh-huh.
but that's part of the
I
process,
feel like I'm just learning how to like enjoy seam ripping after all these years. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I've just realized how many things I haven't made peace with, like with the patience. I'm like, okay, I'm barely learning after all these years of sewing that like seam ripping's just a part of it. As for some reason I used to think like, oh, I have to seam rip, that means I messed it up and now I have to do it over. And I'm like, no, it's I don't know, that whole like trust the process thing. It's always been a challenge for me.
You're like, I'm not trusting it yet. So I still got some time to give
Yeah,
it some time.
I'm learning to trust it.
You're like, I'm learning to trust it still, and you know what? It's so interesting how like that is like one of those things, right? Like I know that, when I teach workshops, I'm like, and especially with embroidery, I'm like, look how easy it is to like just unstitch it. Like it's not a big deal. Like
Uh-huh.
we could just unstitch it.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, and I'm like, it's not a big deal. Like this is easily fixed. And I remember I took a class and it was upholstery, and my
Uh-huh.
teacher was like, it's not a big deal. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, just unstitch it. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, what? And he's like,
Yeah.
just unstitch it. It's not a big deal. And I was like, I never even thought about that, where it's like you could really like just unstitch it and like restitch it and you're fine,
Yeah, it's
But
like
the
why do
thing,
we have this mindset where it's like, oh my gosh, I messed it up. Oh, no.
and I think that like a lot of the times, like, because it's like sewing's like such a like I think a lot of people don't like I think people just assume that it's like you're just sitting in a sewing machine and that's all you're doing. Like there's mathematical equations, like,
Mm-hmm.
with like patterns and this and that, and like cutting like, the front of a shirt,
Uh-huh.
the back of the shirt, like there's so much to it, right? Than just like sitting down and like sewing it. And so, and then like the whole fact that like we're sewing it inside out from like a one-dimensional form, building it to a three-dimensional form.
Yeah.
Like, we should get a little bit more
It's,
credit for what we do. Just saying.
I know. I was just telling someone like, have you ever sewn a stuffed animal? Those are so hard. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's like the
Dude,
type of, I don't know. It's funny how you can like know one part of sewing and then try something else and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like a different ball game part.
yeah. We're like engineers,
Yeah,
but like people don't appreciate it yet.
I know, and it's like when I look at your like Instagram, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at like to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, people are seeing it, and then people are even seeing it on my Instagram. It's just sometimes I think we just put like, or I don't know where I was going with that.
No,
I
you're
feel
totally fine. You know what? It's so funny because you talked about imposter syndrome.
uh-huh.
Dude, I have that like so bad. I always think of like, oh my God, like, I don't know. It's, you know what? It's really, it's, it's hard to get out of it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I've always kind of like even now, like even, last week I'm like, oh fuck, I'm like failing at like everything. And you're just kind of like, you know, like it's fine, like everything's fine, like you're not failing at anything, and
Uh-huh.
it's like we're like you're just kind of like I'm not good enough, I'm not, and yeah, so that whole imposter syndrome thing is like it
Yeah.
I think it's like super real, and it's like how do we like learn to fix that?
Yeah, I mean there's practices too, but even those are hard. Like I did a lot of what affirmations, but it's like once you'll do the affirmations and they'll work and then you got to find something else. And I know like journaling helps enough. I'm a lot I'm not sure with the imposter syndrome. Yeah, it does. I don't know. There's like ways to counteract it, but even those practices, even you have to find new ones after a while.
Yeah, because it's like it's like you work hard and you do all
Uh-huh.
those things and you get like recognized and all those things, and then you're
Uh-huh.
still kind of like uh I don't know if I'm good enough for this, or just, and you're like what, like you're just kind of like I don't know, like so it's like it's crazy, and like and we were talking about that like perspective and like how like one person's life could look really good, and then
Yeah.
you'd be like, oh my god, they must have like a great life, and it's like no, it's just really well curated on Instagram.
Yeah.
But it's like we all have like our struggles and all that kind of stuff, and you know it's like really like kind of like leading with like that compassion of like just kind of like knowing that everyone has like their thing, right, that they got their thing going on, or they have like stuff going on, and it's like
Uh-huh.
always like just kind of going into it where with that kind of perspective of like always just being like okay, like just be really nice. It doesn't cost a lot,
Yeah.
it doesn't cost anything. You could just be a really nice person.
Yeah. And it's just like hard for everyone right now too.
Yeah.
And I'm just
It's really I think we're like in a like interesting like space, right? Like where it's like the holidays and
uh-huh.
um like it's also like during a time where it's like people want to like support small business, and
Uh-huh.
how do they do that, like when you're like on a budget, all that kind of stuff, and I think it's like really like supporting a small business, and especially like you don't have to spend any money with them. It's just really like, hey, like I really like this person and what they do, and like how could we like just tell more people about them,
Yeah.
like share their story, like share like your favorite design or something that they did, and it goes a long way because it's like that's how we basically like met each other, is like
Uh-huh.
through someone sharing like something, and then you're like, oh my god,
Yeah.
like really cool, and like you start to kind of um like it just keep following them and just being like, wow, that's like a really cool like thing that person's doing, and I think it like really helps a lot, when you don't have like that the funds to be able to like support a small business, like
Yeah.
carry them, or like that kind of stuff like really does help. And like I know that right now is like the time where everyone's like, oh my gosh, shopping for like loved ones, and this and that, and like we have like very like eco-friendly like products, where it's
Uh-huh.
like you're basically like recycling things, and it's like no guilt gifts, where
Yeah.
you're like you don't feel like bad buying it because you know that it's like you're supporting a small business, and
Yeah.
you're saving the environment at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's like a win-win, you know? So everyone should consider buying. I swear this isn't an ad.
It's funny though, because I haven't. Sorry, I've just been trying to figure out how, because people want to support my small business. So, what people gravitate towards most with me is custom orders, but they just give me so much anxiety that I'm like, okay, I got to stop custom orders because one, I can't deliver right now. I don't know why they give me anxiety. It's just, they just do. And I'm like, I just want to I took a break. I'm like, I just want to create what I want to. And I haven't posted anything to sell. I haven't I just haven't made a good platform like I used to. Because I'm like,
you know
I
what?
just
Like,
want to sew.
I totally feel you on that because it's like, obviously, like, as a designer, like, you're like, oh, I have like this great idea, right? And like, you want to make it and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, it's like, you want to keep that momentum going of like, oh my God, like, I want to make this and this is cool and this,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And you want to like continue to fuel that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's fun and you're just like excited about it and all that kind of stuff. And I think what happens for us is like, you know, I enjoy the custom order, but it has to be very like within like our style, you know, because once it
Yeah.
becomes like something where it's like, wait, like I don't do that kind of, you know, because it's like I have a specific style, you know, so it's like once it gets out of that style, you're just kind of like, you know, because you want to have like creative control as like a designer, right? Like they're
Yeah.
coming to you because it's like, hey, I like your stuff. Like I want you to design something for me. And so you want them to like be able to have like that creative control as like the designer, you
Uh-huh.
know. It's like going like to like a tattoo artist, like you're like, I love their style of work, like, you know, and this is like my idea. And, you know, you have faith in them that they're gonna do a good job.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's I'm like in a similar space right now where I'm like, okay, like I don't mind doing the custom, but it's like just FYI, like this is like my style and
Uh-huh.
you know, and how do you know, because I think that like, you know, what people see like the sewing machine, they're like, well, you could make me like this thing, right? And you're like, well, yeah, but I don't want to make it though. I don't want to make that, but it's like, you know, you want to like, you know, it's like you want to be
Uh-huh.
utilized for like strong points. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, you know, I did custom sewing and tailoring for 7 years. I did a lot of that kind of stuff, and I was just kind of like, I would never
Tailoring
put
seems
those
hard.
together. Yeah, and you're just kind of like, you know, I think I'm a very creative person where it's like, I think I could do a good job. Like, I know I could do a good job, you know? So it's like,
Yeah.
then you're kind of like, just let me do a good job. Like, I know I could do a good job, you
Mm-hmm.
know? But I think it is like one of those kind of things where it's like, I've always had like that fear of like custom, and then people just kind of are like, they take it to like such an extreme where you're like, I don't even I didn't even have any input on this thing. You just told
Yeah.
me everything you wanted. You know, and you're just kind of like, all right, like, you know, so it kind of like it takes away from like that joy of like, hey, we can make something like cool, like, and because I think the hardest part for me was like being a machine,
Uh-huh.
right? It's like not
Yeah.
being, you know, taken to like where it's like, oh, you know textiles,
Yeah.
you know that like if you sew this guy to this guy, like they're gonna react different, you know, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
gonna drape how you want it to
Yeah.
drape, whatever, you know. So you know textiles, but it's like I think that, you know, like I'm always like really scared to be um treated as like a tool,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Because I felt like that for a long time.
Uh-huh.
I want to be a tool. Like you know, like I want to be like a creative person. Like I want to be able to be like, oh, look, I could do this and I could do that. And like you're, you know, giving input and like, hey, what about this? Or, you know, all that kind of stuff, as opposed to just being like, hey, just do this for me. And you're just kind of like, all right, well, it
Yeah.
takes away like fun, right?
Yeah, for me, I don't know. I think it just has to do with my anxiety and the fact that I'm not I'm not like a tech is technical, so are the word. I'm not a tailor, and I'm just like, I guess I like I'm afraid of letting people down, and that's like something I have to work on within myself with the custom orders. And then it's just lonely too. It's like I like connecting with the customer when they try on the outfit, but I don't know. Like, okay, dream case scenario,
Yeah.
like if I had a custom order job, I'd be like, okay, let's have a luncheon and I'll design this for you because that would make it fun for me. And then you can
Yeah.
watch me do it as I'm creating it and I don't have to panic the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? Like, I feel like when someone asks for like a custom order, like you do have to get to know them. You know,
Uh-huh.
you have to get to know like even by looking at their outfit when they're meeting you, and you're just kind of like, oh, okay. And like I have girlfriends, like one of my girlfriends, she's like she looks like a total like fairy and stuff like that, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
oh my god. So any like she has a style, and I'm like, oh my god. And she's like, she loves playing with clothes, and I
Uh-huh.
love it. And so any kind of like iridescent like fabric or like velvet that
Yeah.
bright, I'm like, oh my god. And I automatically think about her because it's like she has the style, she's willing to like play with clothes and all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So it's like it makes it fun to basically be like, hey, would you like let me like make something for you because I think it would look so cute on you, and it's like it's awesome to like have that, because then you're
Uh,
just kind of like, oh wow, like she allows me to create like fun things for her,
uh-huh.
and it looks cute, and she's like willing to be like, yes. And and it's all because it's like years and years of like getting to know like what
Yeah.
she likes to wear, like what she doesn't like to wear, and and like what color, like what's her color palette, like what do you not see her wearing a lot, and all that kind of stuff. So it's really I think getting to know, like, you don't have to know them for like a lifetime, but at least like a little bit where you're just kind of like um you get to know like who they are, like why they like wearing like their their colors, why do they like
Yeah.
wearing black as opposed to like every other color, so yeah, it's I think just getting to know them a little bit and just being like, what do you not
Yeah.
like, what do you
Yeah,
not like.
clothing is very intimate. It's like that's why it doesn't need to be this fast fashion thing. It's like you and like for years people thought they were fat because they were only making clothes like three sizes for people that are like our range is so
Oh my god, I'm like, you know what, okay, I always say this, I get like really like I always say this, um like the sizing charts and
uh-huh.
all that kind of stuff, like you go to the store and you're like, I'm a small, I'm a medium, I'm a large.
Yeah.
Like those things, like you should not pay attention to those things because they like a medium is supposed to fit like five different body types, and
Uh-huh.
it's like so it's like it's fast fashion, right? Where you're just kind of like, all right, how can we like make this fit five different body types? Because we
Uh-huh.
don't want to make like five different sizes and it's not going to sell as much. So it's like we basically like make like five sizes and basically give those people the options. And regardless if it makes them feel any kind of way about their body, like, at least we have like sizing for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where a lot of like body issues came to play, right? Where you were
Yeah.
like, well, clothes doesn't look good on my body, so I should lose weight or I should, and it's like, no, clothes is not like you're supposed to be buying clothes that's a little bit bigger than for you and then get it tailored. But it's like we don't do that because the quality of the clothes that we're buying isn't good quality. So
Uh-huh.
it's like it doesn't last that long, you know what I mean? Like it's like especially like with the like I had tailor like some Sheen stuff and I was like, you start to sew it and you're like, oh crap, it's like leaving holes everywhere because the
Yeah.
fabric isn't good quality fabric. So then you're like, this isn't going to last a long time because you're puncturing it with holes. And like the fabric is like such a synthetic fabric that basically what ends up happening is that you're just leaving holes behind and you're like, the holes are supposed to close up if it was like cotton.
Yeah.
Like the needle just goes in and out, and then it closes, But since it's not like good at fabric, then a lot of people are just kind of like, people aren't investing in their wardrobe,
Yeah.
and I think that any body like type could look really good as long as you have a really good tailor. And I think sometimes those are like things like that I like missed doing, where it's like people would come in and they would be like, I'm not like a size 4, so it doesn't look good on me. And I'm like, I know where to tailor this from, and then you do like little tweaks, and then you're like, they're like,
Yeah.
oh. And, even with like my own stuff, like I tailor the hell out of everything, because it's like, like you just, where like to nip and tuck, and tailoring's all like part of like an illusion, like
Yeah.
you want to make it look like you have an hourglass shape, but you don't. But, you're just kind of like, hey, like if you like tuck it in a little bit here, it's going to make your hips look bigger, and then it looks like you got a big booty, But no, you're fine.
I can't believe I made it this long without coughing.
Oh, dude, you're totally fine. We'll do a cheers water break.
Cheers.
We swear it's not vodka. It's so bad. But it's like, I get really like pissed off about like the sizing chart thing, because you're just kind of like, dude, this sizing chart like really gave a lot of people like these complexes, right? Like where you're like, wait, like, so I'm a large. So like that in itself, you're large.
Yeah. Like what?
I'm an extra large. I'm extra large. So that it's like, and like small, like, okay, that's small. And then you're like medium. And then it's like, so it's like it created like these complexes, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like, wow, like, really, dude? Like, I'm a fucking large or an extra large, or, even 2XL and all those kind of things. And so it created like this complex of like trying to fit people into like these like really like narrow boxes where it's like people don't fit there, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it's really about like, hey, you know what? Like anything that you want to look good on you, always size up and get it tailored. And I always tell people, I'm like, it's more affordable when you thrift and then you get it tailored.
Yeah.
Because then like that, it's like you're buying a shirt for like, I don't know, like $5 at like the thrift store, and then you tailor it down, and then it looks a million times better than if you bought it off the rack.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where like I always tell people, I'm like, everyone should know how to sew. Like everyone should know how to like hem their own pants. Everyone should like be able to like fix their own stuff. Like I think that like, it's really interesting like where we kind of like just stop fixing our own shit,
Yeah, it like used to be a requirement. Not only that, I feel like even in fashion school, I want to know like the mechanics of the machine sometimes too, because when that thing messes up, especially the industrial machines, they're great when they work, but they're more sensitive than the like newer home machines.
Yeah. And it's like, how do you like, because these are like tools, so it's like, how do you fix them so like they could continue to like work and do all that kind of stuff, Because I have like an industrial serger, and I'm like, whenever like you have to rethread that thing, you're like, all right, bring out the tweezers, and like you're just kind of like, and then like you have to test run it like one time, make sure like the thread stays in there. And then sometimes it's like, no. And then you're like, really, motherfucker? Like, and so you have to do it again. And then you have to do it like 2 more times. And then you're like, finally, like, all right, I finally got it. But even then, it's like, it's so difficult, like, to get like a new machine and like figure it out. You're just kind of like, all right. But I think that that's like the fun part too, where you're just kind of like, all right, this is like really teaching you like some patience.
Makes you feel like a mechanic.
Yeah, you're like bringing out the tool belt.
Yeah, especially with the industrials though. Like, I mean, at school we used to have like an actual mechanic that would fix them, and then I've kind of taken a break from the industrials because I'm in the Central Valley, so like getting things to fix them isn't as accessible. So I do the home, which is nice. I do miss the industrial though. I miss like the purr and all
Yeah.
that. But yeah, like everyone should learn how to sew, and then also sewing machine maintenance too. Like I
Yeah.
don't know how.
Yeah. At least get a duster.
I just I don't.
Just dust it out,
Yeah, I
My
know.
friend,
Sometimes that's all it is. Like,
yeah. Well, my friend, she was like, she does embroidery too. Like
uh-huh.
she owns
Oh,
like a business, and she has like a bunch of like embroidery machines. And she's like, you need like a duster. And I usually do have like a duster, like an air
uh-huh.
duster, just to kind of like get all like because it's like there's a lot
Uh-huh.
of dust that gets made or whatever. So I'm like dusting it out. And I'm like, oh, I need to like get a duster. I haven't had one, like in like maybe like 2 weeks. And yesterday she's like, I got you a duster. And I was like, yeah. So I've been like dusting everything. You're like, freaking, even stuff that you're like, you could just wipe that down, right? No, use the duster.
It's like fun. I know schools are always fun.
Yeah. But like, yeah, yeah. I don't know. Like, I feel like, you know, it's been like a good like conversation getting to like know you and like all that kind of stuff and like the stuff that you do. Are you working on anything fun?
Oh, okay, so I'm trying to do this like Project Runway thing on TikTok just because I don't I don't know. It's TikTok and I'm trying I don't know. Hold on. Let me regroup my mind. I'm like all over the place. Like I'll get like inspiration and try to work on something. I just have too many ideas. So this Project Runway thing is for me to try to like do like a new idea every week. But I haven't done one this week because I got sick. I'm starting to feel better though. Um, so like last week, it was like I was like, oh, pick out an old sewing pattern and an old fabric and make something. Which
That's
I did that. It didn't even turn out. But I'm like, okay, as long as I'm sewing.
yeah.
I ended up just like making the same thing I always make. And then this week I always find stuff at the thrift store and I want to repattern it. So that was going to be my next week. And I just have like a million ideas. So I'm trying to use TikTok to do those ideas.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm trying to, I haven't really done it on Instagram. I don't know. I don't know why I feel like Instagram and TikTok are two different worlds. Like I don't want to post the same thing on Instagram as I do TikTok.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Dude, I'm like, yeah. We basically told my daughter, we're like, do you want to manage our TikTok? She's like, I'll think about it.
It's
I
not
was like, what?
easy. It was
I'm like,
hard when I first
oh,
started it. I'm like, what? Everything's supposed to be easy to post. Instagram's not like this. And
yeah,
then Reels just like give you a bunch of strangers, even when they do get popular. I'm like, I don't want strangers. I want like a community base.
yeah,
And I don't know. That's why I'm like, social media is too much for me right now.
yeah. No, but I feel like even like the challenges hey, this is a Project Runway challenge. Like that's such a
Uh-huh.
freaking great idea to like, as like a challenge to like really like step out of like what you
Yeah.
usually make and all that. Like that's such a freaking cool like idea just to and then, like how you said, you're like, it gets me to sew, so I'm cool with it. But I think that that's like a great idea to just kind of basically be like, hey, like this week create like X, Y, and Z. And it's like, because it's like for me, like I kind of like I'm like, okay, cool. Like I like the
Uh-huh.
reworking and doing this and that, but it's like I like doing more start to finish. Like that's like my thing. Like if I could just
Uh-huh.
start to finish like everything, like I would just,
Yeah.
it's like my
Exactly.
jam. But yeah, it's like one of those things where I'm like, really wanting to get like out of your like comfort zone, but like, still being like on brand is like, you're just kind of like moving in like these weird directions and you're like, all right. But it's like, I think that like really put me like in a position of like just kind of being like, all right, well, I want to have like a little challenge. What does that challenge look like?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I think that's with sewing, it's like you never stop learning. There's always like something new, and you're just kind of like, all right, well, I'm never
Exactly.
going to be an
Yeah.
expert. That's fine. I don't want to be an expert, but it's like, you're just like, wow, I'm never going to be an expert. Like, this is like,
Yeah.
you're just learning like so much stuff all the time, and
Yeah.
I like that about sewing, that it's like, it's so different, and and yeah, like it's just one of those things where I'm like, wow, like sewing, like it really like allows for you to like be able to like make anything,
Yeah.
and I think that that's like the fun part.
Yeah. I don't know. There's been times when I've been too cocky too, and I'm like, I can make that, and then I try to make it. I'm like, oh, okay, I got to reevaluate my skills.
I'm sure you can. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Which is another learning process of sewing. It's just like, okay, just don't give up. You can do it.
I always tell like, because we do like sewing lessons and all that kind of stuff. And I always tell people, I'm like, this, because a lot of the times, even now, I'm like, all right, if I sew these two together, like, what is it going to look like? So I'll put like a pin, and then like, I'll put like a pin, like in a way where it's like, it's mocking like a stitch. And then I'm like, oh, okay, that looks right. And so then I'm like, then you're able to like sew it, but it's like a lot of the times it's like really like, pinning it and kind of like seeing how it's going to look before you like do it. Because then you're just kind of like, oh, all right, okay, I kind of thought so. Because it's like, dude, we're sewing everything inside out. And so it becomes like something where it's like, you really have to be like so many steps ahead in your mind to be able to like see how this is going to look before you even like put it together and all that. And so then it becomes like really like overwhelming, where you're like, oh my God, I didn't know it was like that many steps. But yeah, so like that, it you're not like sewing everything like backwards or inside out, or
Upside down. I think sleeves. Sorry, I have to grab my charger. Yeah. Yeah, my mind, it doesn't, it's weird because I can't sew from patterns. Like, I always buy patterns at the thrift store. And like, if I read the directions or even take them out, it's really hard for me to understand them. That's why I'm really glad I learned pattern making, because I can just make my own pattern.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, it's challenging, like knowing how to cut and the direction to sew. And I don't even, this is like, don't judge me, but I don't even respect grain lines all the time.
It's
I'm
okay,
like, I don't
me
care.
either.
I like it like this. I don't care if it's
Me
gonna fit
either.
weird.
And you know what? Like, that's where I'm like talking about, right? Where it's like, all right, if it's like a skirt that needs to flow a specific kind of way, cool, whatever. Respect the green line, whatever. I don't care. But it's like, if it's like you're doing something different, that it's like, you need it to work this way, like, just do it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not like, I'm not technical like that at all. So it's like, for me, it's like, I'm utilizing quilts to like make jackets. Like, there's a fucking gray line on that,
Yeah.
like, okay, we're cutting it this way, and you're like, great, It's like, it's really, I feel like really like just not having rules is like also like a lot of fun as like a creative. But then you could just kind of like basically be like, hey, like, this is what I want to do. Because I don't, like, I've had a lot of like people, right, where they're like, oh, I want to learn how to sew and I'm going to make this pattern. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then they start reading the instructions and they're like, what? Because it's like in like another language.
Yeah.
They're like,
Or it's like translated from another language too. Sometimes.
Yeah. And I think that like, obviously, like the way that we're teaching sewing isn't encouraging. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like, you could utilize like a t-shirt pattern, like a basic t-shirt pattern to show like basics. Like, this is a t-shirt. If you add long sleeves, it becomes a long sleeve. If you cut the middle, then it becomes a jacket. If you add a different kind of fabric. And then if you add a hood, it becomes like a hoodie. you know? And
Yeah.
there's so many like basics that we could do that like
Yeah.
we want to overcomplicate things, you know?
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, if you have like a t-shirt pattern and like pajama patterns, like you could rule the world. That's all you need.
It's a
And
basic block.
that's all you need.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, if you think about it, it's like, look, it's like you could create like really like fun like pants,
Uh-huh.
you know, and just pick really cool fabric and now you got pants. And then it's like, depending on like what kind of shirt you want, it's like you just kind of like cut it to what you need and then that's it, you know? So it's like, it's just utilizing basics as opposed to like
Yeah.
basically being like, this pattern is going to X, Y, and Z. And like sometimes patterns are like difficult, you know, especially to read and like
Yeah.
every like shirt is sewn the exact same way. So it's like, why do we like overcomplicate? Like, or why are we allowing like the pattern to tell us how to like sew something when we've sewn a shirt before, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm like a rule
Um,
breaker like that, where I'm like, fuck that pattern. Like, we'll just, you know, I know
uh-huh.
how to do it like this and we'll do it like that, you know? And, and
Yeah.
like I'll like reference the pattern here and there where I'm like, oh, okay, like it says for this to do that. All right, cool. Like,
Uh-huh.
but to follow it like detailed, like yeah, I
Yeah,
can't.
and that's where I get a lot of my patterns too. But I
Yeah,
don't want to hang up on you. I do have to start my amazing day job. I'm lucky I
yeah,
get to work from home, but
that's awesome.
and then yeah, things are going on with my charger, so I'm like, okay, this is
It's
probably my time.
this is the time.
Yeah.
But you know what? It was really really nice getting to know you.
It
Um,
was.
I'm yeah, and I'm like looking forward to like having like you know a sewing date together.
Yes.
That would be so fun. Hey, on the next podcast we could sew.
Yeah. I'm
That would
just
be
willing
fun.
to people who live in the Central Valley, we're always looking for an excuse to get out of this whatever it is.
Yeah. Hey, it was really nice talking to you. And I'm looking forward to like seeing all the cool stuff that you make. And we're here to support you in anything that you
Oh,
need.
so
So
much, Lee.
yeah. 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 And whenever you're in town, please come and visit. And whenever we're in town, we'll go and say hi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're ever going to the Sequoias, there's more to do around here than people know. But yeah, okay. Thank you so much for having me.
I'll see you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.